I was confident with Power Failing when we put it out. I was like, this is a great record, and I think we did a good job. And excited to like get out there and play it and promote it. I had the opposite feeling with EndSerenading. Like I still didn't feel like the lyrics or vocals were good. It just didn't ever feel right to me or feel good.
Welcome, everyone, to This Was The Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000 punk scene. I am your host, Mike Doyle. Before we start, if you want to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/thiswasthescene. You can sign up for $1 a month. I don't really have any other tiers because I don't really know what else to fucking give people. So it's just $1 a month. Or you could donate one time at thiswasthescene.com. There's a button that says donate, and you can do that, and it'd be great. Mineral is an American emo band originally from Houston, Texas. Soon after their formation, they relocated to Austin. After disbanding in '98, its members worked on other musical projects, including the Gloria Record, pop-up known in Zookeeper. In 2010, a compilation CD of all the band's songs, except for Sadder Star, was released in Japan, entitled TheCompleteCollection. Mineral announced a reunion tour in 2014, and I was there when they fucking played at Bowery, and it was goddamn awesome, and we do talk about that in the interview. And so since then, the band celebrated their 25th anniversary in 2019 with a book that had a vinyl record in it that had 2 songs, Aurora and Your Body is the World. You should go get those. You can go to their Bandcamp and buy it from there, which I did. And I also talk about that in the interview as well. This interview is, I say it all the time, I love and have loved doing every single interview that I've done for this podcast. Every interview has been a fucking blast. And there's a couple that basically 17-year-old me would have freaked out about back in the day. And this isn't to shit on any interviews where I haven't said this, but Mineral was such a giant fucking influence on me then. I still listen to Power Failing now, and it still holds up to me. So when I got the ability to talk to Chris, I was just like, I can't believe this is fucking happening. And the fact that I get to put this interview out, it's so fucking cool to me. At 42, I'm geeking out about this. And I love the fact that I'm geeking out about it because it's so fucking badass. And I'm really excited that this interview exists. So I ended up sending a message to Chris through Instagram, and he quickly responded. He was like, yeah, man, let's set something up, which was fucking awesome. So I got him on the Skype, and this is what we chat about. Why they changed the name from Zookeeper to Mountain Time. Christie Front Drive. Touring with Jimmy Eat World and Sensefield. The cover of Love My Way, the album EndSerenading, how he came up with the song EndSerenading, signing to Interscope, which I'm so glad I didn't fucking know about, Clive Davis story, and a ton more. Lastly, I just want to do one small promotion for a book that I put out through my comic. It's called The Couples Checklist. You can go on Instagram. I just made an Instagram account for it called The Couples Checklist, and it's offshoot of my comic, Your Daily Bread, which is also on Instagram. And it's a fun little kind of questionnaire, multiple choice, not really multiple choice, but it's this yes or no fun thing that I made for couples. It's sweet, and it's some cute things to do as a couple, and it's super fucked up things to do as a couple. And so I'm trying to promote the fuck out of this, and this has nothing to do with punk rock, but it's something that I personally do, and I'm at the core of making this podcast, so I figure, hey, why not? I could do a little quote-unquote commercial at the beginning of my podcast for this. So if you want to go check that out, just go to Instagram, go to the Couples Checklist, and just follow it. I'm going to do all this fun promotion stuff for it, and not make it so selly, but just, I don't know, just show snippets from the book and make it interesting and fun. But you should go check it out, and if you want to buy it, you can go to yourdailybread.com, even though it doesn't match the name of it. It's Your Daily Bread, BRED, and you can buy a copy there for $15 with shipping included. And that's all I have to say. Feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who loves some punk rock nostalgia. With that said, let's get started. First off, I'm just going to geek out. I'm a huge fucking Mineral fan. So I'm super excited about this. You've been on my list since I started this of someone I've wanted to talk to for a really long time. I'm really excited about this. So thank you.
Cool. Yeah, no worries, man.
But real quick, I was on Spotify just going back through and listening to Power Failing. There's a couple tracks that have a little bit of a skip in the very beginning. Were you aware of this?
No.
Yeah, it's Parking Lot. Not to call her or anything, but I figured you might want to know. So it's Parking Lot, and I think Gloria. they both do. So I don't know who's hosting that, but
Well, I'll sick the hounds on
I was
them.
listening to it. I was like, should I say this? Like, fuck it, I'll say it. um, Before we kind of get started, I was just doing I was just kind of going through like your Instagram and all these things, and but it seems like you're kind of doing your rounds and doing some promotion right now. Do you want to just give a shout out and like your new record and things before we jump into it, and you can just kind of mention it again at the end?
Sure, yeah, we're I'm continuing to do this Mountain Time thing, which is an extension of
Zookeeper.
it was under the name Zookeeper, yeah, in the 2004 onwards. Now it's kind of all coming under the Mountain Time name, and we're reissuing the first two Zookeeper records on vinyl through Spartan, and there's some bonus tracks on there, and that actually comes out tomorrow, Friday,
Oh, sweet.
digitally. Vinyl manufacturing supply chains are still all out of whack from the pandemic. I think we'll actually probably get vinyl in November. So that's happening, and we started that project, and through that kind of opened up this can of worms of like all this stuff that we recorded back then, and we now have another whole record of completely unreleased stuff that we're starting to mix. That's like stuff that was started back then and never finished. So it's kind of interesting, like half of what you'll end up hearing on the final versions of these songs is stuff that we recorded when we first recorded this stuff back then in the studio, stuff we got off of these 2-inch tape reels. And, we've gone back and recut whatever needed to be recut, which we would have done back then anyways, because we recorded live. So there's a lot of like the vocals are scratched. They're just like a bunch of drums in them, and acoustic instruments all have to be recut, pianos and stuff, because the drums are in the room. So they kind of work their way into everything that isn't isolated. So it's been interesting because we've been recutting that stuff, which, like I said, we would have done back then if we had finished it then, but now we're doing it now, like 20 years later. So it's 15 years later, however long it's been. So we're ending up with like the final tracks on the next record that'll come out is kind of like half of what you're hearing is stuff we recorded in 2005, 2006, and half of it's stuff recorded this year.
It's crazy.
So it's pretty fun, and I'm really excited about those. I think it'll kind of bring us back to the present. Like it'll be the bridge that brings this past stuff and the current Mountain Time stuff, like the record that came out last year, kind of all back together.
I'm sure you probably asked this a lot, but why wouldn't you just keep Zookeeper as the name?
It was I don't know, to be honest. It was it was it's something that I tend to like take forever to make decisions. And then even after I make them, like I spend the next 4 or 5 years like regretting having made them. Sometimes I'm like, why did we change the name? But ultimately, I think it's kind of it's a hard word to search, and that all these things were starting to happen where like obviously there's like a movie, and there's an old analog video game called Zookeeper, and like all these things that come up when you try and search when we had the Zookeeper sites going, which we didn't have a lot going, to be honest. Then we started getting there was a band, several other bands using the name, and one from Chicago, and their profiles kept getting crossed with ours. So like if you went to our bands in town, it would have
Oh yeah.
our photograph, but it would have all their shows listed. And I found out about this because my buddy Tim Casher from Cursive was living in Chicago at the time and called me and said, "Hey, are you playing in my town tomorrow night? That's so exciting! I want to come." And I was like, I don't think I'm playing in your town tomorrow night. I don't have any plans to, but I would love to, but no, that's. And then he sent me the link to the thing he had seen, and I was like, "Yep, that's our picture." And it says we're playing it, in Chicago tomorrow night. But I've kind of put it together and realized that there is a local band in Chicago with the name Zookeeper, and somehow like a bunch of our online profiles, the sort of things that are like auto-generated, like bands in town and stuff like that, were getting crossed. That, and it just felt like I don't know, like Zookeeper was this big boisterous like community of people, and when we made those first two records, and it had since kind of become just much more like me making records and bringing in whoever. So I think I thought maybe it's time for a different name for it, but it's all kind of the same body of work, so it's a complex. And the Mountain Time name was actually in the running when I named Zookeeper, and a lot of my friends were very disappointed that I didn't go with Mountain Time because it was my nickname at the time,
Huh.
and a lot of people called me Mountain Time. They just thought it was perfect name for the thing. For whatever reason, I liked Zookeeper better at the time. So I kind of went to Mountain Time because it felt like it had a little more personal relevance or whatever, and it seemed easier to search.
Well, technically, I mean, if this was like the CD era as well, it would have been a smart move because I was talking, someone, it was an interview, I think I did, or someone had said this recently. It might have been someone I was talking to, but they had made their name start with A because, or it was one of the letter that they went with was easier, was more, if you were scanning through the CDs or the record store, you'd come up faster. So you kind of beat people before they get fatigued out before they got to Z, which I never even thought of.
It's funny. Yeah, it could be.
You have like, and before so when I go back and kind of talk about you getting involved in the scene and if you actually were involved in the scene before you start the band, but you have a very folky style. Was this something that you always had when you were in Mineral? And that's one of the reasons. I mean, it's kind of a big question because I don't want to talk about how you guys broke up yet, even though you've answered that so many times. But this is a different platform, so I'm sure there's people who don't know like the full story. But you have like this folky style. Was that something that you had? Like, was that something you had during Mineral where you wanted to kind of go in that direction, or did that just kind of come later on?
Well, it was before Mineral, like I started out playing when I was younger in bands in middle school and high school with friends. I started out on drums, and that was a really cool place to start because, in middle school and high school, like a lot of people are like, I want to play guitar, and they get guitars, but not as many people are like, I want to play drums and get drums.
Yeah,
So if you are an okay drummer at your school, you have access to like four bands to play in immediately.
yeah, yeah.
I was playing drums, and then at some point, one of the bands I was playing in had another drummer available who they and but needed a bass player. So I was like, "Wow, I can play bass." So I like learned to play bass, and I had been playing piano. I had taken piano lessons when I was younger, so I had some sense of the melodic instruments. And even once I got drums and was doing that, like I really wanted to write more than anything. My brother got a guitar. I have a brother who's a year older, and he got a guitar the same summer I got drums. He wasn't that into it at the time. Like it wasn't his full on passion like it was for me. Like I was just all in on music immediately. But he also didn't like to share, so I had to sneak into his room when he wasn't home and learn to play his guitar um, because I wanted to write songs. I started out writing in high school, late middle school, early high school, songs that were very folk. And it was just like simple acoustic guitar chords, played talent shows in high school that way and stuff. That was kind of my main thing. And I'd play open mics and stuff. And when I moved down to Texas, I was still doing that, but I knew I wanted to find a band. When I got to Austin and met Scott, it was the first guy I started playing with, and we both really wanted it to work, but we were coming from very different places. Like I was bringing in this really kind of folky acoustic stuff. He was coming from more the like, metal, almost grunge kind of thing. And we had a lot of common ground as far as stuff we listened to, but like the stuff we were writing was pretty different. Then I remember 93, I guess it was, 94, somewhere in there. Siamese Dream by Smashing Pumpkins came out, and a record called Chrome, a band called Catherine Wheel from England. Those two records were just like sparks for us. We are like, there you go. There's a vibe and sound that we can both like really get excited about.
So did you like more of like because there's a lot of Mineral stuff. I mean, even Serenading is so chill, and it seems that you have this chill tone, but in the folky stuff outside of Mineral, like you have that. Even Gloria Record, you had like the first two songs on Start Here are a bit more like I thought they were kind of Mineral-esque with like the upbeat style, and then it kind of slowed down. But it seems like Siamese Dream makes so much sense because it's so much space there, which seems like that's your playground. And then Scott has this like shredding sense in his guitar.
Yeah,
That makes total sense.
definitely. I think that's exactly right. Yeah, I think I was what appealed to me in that music was, and even in Mineral, when it was going on, was like, I liked all of it, but like I was really all about chill moments. Just wanted things to be chill and beautiful.
When you grew up, because your lyrics are very poetic. Like some people in bands back in the day, they'd write lyrics and they were shit. It's like they're starting off and it's like your lyrics in Power Failing are just awesome. It's like everything about that record, and we'll get into it later, but everything about that record, the sound, the vocals, the lyrics, it's all like, to me, it's like this solid piece. So like leading up to that, were you like a writer before you started writing music, poetry or journaling or anything like that?
Definitely. Yeah, I used to use these yellow legal pads of paper, and I just had trash bags full of them, like full of songs, what I called songs, which were just poetry, essentially lyrics before I started putting music to them. Yeah, so to me, it always starts on paper, like with the words.
What were you writing about? Like what, well, yeah, what was like your focus?
Uh, I don't know. I had a very religious period when I was in high school where, like I had grown up going to church with my parents, but they went to a Lutheran church. So it wasn't particularly like evangelical or holy roller. But then I started listening to a lot of, in middle school, I guess, like Christian punk and like the sort of underground Christian music, and met and started playing in bands with some people through that. So I think a lot of it was that. A lot of it was not necessarily like I was never like evangelical holy roller guy, but like really processing that sort of faith and those beliefs.
You and Scott start playing. How did that lead you guys? Did you both find the scene together or was it separate? Like how did that happen?
We knew some of the things that were like, we listened to a lot of what we called indie rock at the time. We were really into like Dinosaur Jr. and Superchunk and that side of the scene, this kind of indie rock like Merge Records and Matador Records, like Pavement. The scene more specifically to like emo and post-hardcore and stuff was not something we were aware of or came from. And I really think that the catalyst for that was a friend of ours asked us to play a show in Houston in the early days of us playing, opening for a band from Denver called Christie Front Drive, who we knew nothing about. But we went down. This friend of ours said, like, I think you'll really like them. I think you guys are kind of in the same wheelhouse as far as your sounds. So we went down and played with them and met them, and we're just like immediate friends. And within the next year, we were like touring with them and a bunch of other bands in that scene. And Carrie, their bass player, put out our first 7-inch. So they were really what opened the door to that scene for us, because at least three of the four of us were kind of unaware of that scene. Gabe, the drummer, grew up in the Bay Area, and he was spent a lot of time at Gilman Street, so he saw like a lot of Operation Ivy and Crimpshrine and early Green Day shows and stuff like that. So he kind of had more of a idea of that scene than any of the rest of us.
So when you guys, the four of you come together, how old were you guys when Mineral became a band?
94. So I was 19, probably. We're all a year apart, like going up. I'm the youngest and Gabe is the oldest. So we would have been like 19, 20, 21, and 22.
So you guys just started this band out of, because you had graduated high school, I'm guessing at that point, right?
Yeah. I grew up mostly in Denver, moved to Houston halfway through my junior year of high school. So and then I ended up graduating a semester early because the school credits were different in Houston than they had been where I grew up. I was able to graduate a semester early, which I jumped at, and I immediately moved back to Denver thinking this is where I want to be. But then I realized like all the people I knew there had moved away to go to college, and I just sort of quickly realized like I know all these people, like there's no mystery here for me. I had met and befriended Jeremy in Houston at the time, and he was like, well, a bunch of us are moving to Austin, which is like what everyone does in Texas if you're a musician and want to be where cool stuff's happening. So you should come. So that summer of '93, I moved back down to Austin, and these friends of ours from a group of friends from Houston all moved up to Austin. Was that the question? I got a little
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah, no, you answered it. Actually, it led it perfectly because my next question was because when I was writing in questions, I was like, I typically start with every interview and asking how someone got in the scene, and I even said it earlier when I was asking the question, like I was like, I'm not sure if you guys were a part of a scene. I know you guys you're very synonymous with Jimmy Eat World because you guys did the split and that whole time frame and all that. But like even they were just looking to be a rock band and they just happened to stumble upon the scene. And it seemed like that's what I was thinking. Like you guys, it seems like you just kind of tripped over it and just fell into it. So when you guys started and you have this sound, what would catapult you to start being a band?
I don't know. I mean, I think it took a little while for, like most bands, to kind of discover our sound. There's a lot of There's probably at least 10 to 20 songs that were written between the beginning of the band and Power of Failing that never saw the light of day. I guess Sadder Star is an example of one that did get recorded. But yeah, it was, I don't think it was particularly great stuff. Like, I think we were really just like trying some things out, like trying to find a way for all of our voices to come together to make a kind of cohesive sound that we were all excited about. And yeah, meeting Christie Front Drive was really exciting, not just because it opened the door to this scene, but just because it really felt like, oh, there you go, like that's kind of what we're doing, and hearing the Sunny Day Real Estate album Diary like had the same effect. It felt like, oh, cool, there's other people kind of working in this same field or whatever, and then quickly discovering the scene through Christie Road Drive guys and like connecting with Crank Records and Boy's Life and Vitreous Humor and Promise Ring and Jimmy Eat World and Braid. And it was just like all of a sudden we were like Get Up Kids, we were like touring with and friends with all these cool people like all over the country. And that felt awesome. It felt like just being immediately like plugged into a national scene.
I mean, it kind of gives you a home, right? When you're a band just playing and you're showing up and you're playing I mean, you're out of high school at the time, but some bands start in high school and they're playing like a coffee house or they just show up and play a club. You're kind of playing to people who, oh, is there any connection here? But when you find this, and you find a scene or this scene, there's like you show up and people wanted it. They
Hmm.
wanted to know what you had to say or what you were
Yeah,
playing.
yeah, totally. Or they at least trusted that you belonged there and they were like open-minded and we were going to check it out. It was cool.
What was like the first song you guys wrote where it finally clicked and you became like the mineral sound where you started everything after that became the songs that you stuck with?
I feel like it was slower for sure.
Wow.
That song just like it's so funny. I'm sure I've talked about this somewhere, but like my girlfriend at the time, when I wrote it, I just wrote it on an acoustic guitar, and I was really excited about it, and she loved it. But she was like, "I don't think that's a mineral song. Like, I don't. I think I just don't see how you do that any other way than just like that on the acoustic guitar by yourself." And I was like, "Oh, I love it so much. I got to take it to the band, and I can hear like these dynamics in it." But it's just funny, like to think that it might have come across that way when what it became with the band was so like kind of guttural, and
Yeah,
it's fun.
totally.
That was definitely the song where we were all just like, "Oh, okay, there we go. Yeah, that'd be cool. We could write another 9 of those. That'd be cool, you
And you
know?"
did. But an acoustic guitar, did you write it the same speed and did you have the pauses in the chorus?
I don't think I had the pauses so much. Like that was something we worked out more with the band, and it was probably played a little slower. Other than that, it was pretty much what it is as far as what I play on the song.
What's it about? I don't I know you've probably answered this before, but I don't even know what it's about.
So it's about to me like this idea of that I was obsessed with like at the time of like not selling out, and it's funny because it wasn't tied to any scene in any way. Where I know within the scene of DIY punk rock music, there was definitely once we got in there this ethos of like don't sell out, don't commercialize what you're doing, don't sign to a major label. But for me, it was more like don't. It's just about integrity, It's like it was about wanting to be myself, be honest about who I was, and not just try to fit in or yeah. I mean, I guess it was just something in that area. There used to be the title comes from over the ending part. There used to be when I first wrote it a line of lyrics that repeated that said something about. There was two vocal parts. There was one that said something about like, and I'm sorry, I'm slower than you are. Just like about taking your time, doing things right.
Did you have the full lyrics done when you brought that to the band, or did they come after?
Oh yeah, they were done. Like I said, most of at the time at least, most of what I did like started with lyrics. Then I would start hearing melodies for the lyrics, and I would just really. That's why I started playing guitar because I had these songs in my head, and I would write them down. And once melodies started forming from them, I was like, I have to figure out how to play music that works behind these melodies. So I would learn a chord or find a chord that worked at the beginning and start singing the melody I had in my head. And as soon as the chord no longer sounded right, I'd be like, well, I got to find another chord now. So that's kind of how I started writing songs.
So I just want to stay one more question on Slower and move on, but that moment, because this is just what I mean, the parts that I mean, the whole song fucking rocks, and But that part where Scott just like does like that scream on the guitar, was that something that when you brought it to the band and you're like, hey, check this out, and you guys started collaborating, did he, when he threw that in, was that kind of a holy shit moment?
Totally. And he did a lot of that back then. I mean, I know there's a lot of it on Power Filling, but
Yeah.
he was really into filling these spaces when he wasn't playing with like feedback notes and like letting them get as big as possible. And like, there's a real art to it, finding a way to like, have it be the right note or
Yeah.
there's a real fine line between melody and noise when it comes to feedback. Yeah, it was phenomenal. I definitely remember a decision in the rehearsal room as we were like working out the arrangement to it to like get just super quiet on that part before that and really bring it down to where it really hit when that ending happened. And then him incorporating, I think, once we got that idea dynamically into the arrangement, like him incorporating that feedback leading into it was just devastating, right?
Yeah. I can imagine you guys at some point where you're like, that's so awesome. And then there's certain parts where he keeps doing it, and other songs are like, all right, we got to really kind of tone this down a little bit.
It's hilarious. Like we had a friend's band that we played a lot of shows with in Houston at the time, and I was really close with the singer, and I loved him, but I didn't love the whole band, and I thought their guitar player was kind of cheesy. And I remember one day after a Mineral show that we did, a show we played together, like him talking to me and saying like, yeah, I really like your band. The one thing that if I had to like critique, you gotta like tell Scott to stop doing all that feedback. It's just like it's too distracting. It's not cool. It's not like it doesn't add to anything. And I remember emphatically disagreeing with him and being like, no, no, you gotta let that guy just you gotta let him run loose. It's not always gonna be great, but I don't know. That's just always been my philosophy with music. It's just like you don't rein things in. Don't be afraid to make mistakes because that's that sort of expression is how you find the great moments.
Yeah, I mean, you always trip over, like, I'm a designer, and the best designs that the majority of the really good designs that I like are mistakes.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
like, oh, that's it. That's what I was looking for. Crap. I was trying too hard and I just tripped over and just did something on a whim, and that's what I stuck with.
I think that's true, like of just all creative work, really.
Yeah. I mean, you're basically just searching for something like you have this feeling like you're just doing it because you want to create something and you get frustrated because it's not coming to you, and then you're like, ugh. So because you feel like you're in the moment you're trying to create just to create, and then you have to stop. You're like, okay, nothing's coming out. And then there's another time where there's this drive. You're going, I know there's something I'm searching for, and then I got to do whatever it takes. Then it suddenly comes. Once it comes through, and you have that, it's like 100% clarity. You just know that you found it. You're like, holy shit, that's it.
Yeah, it's a great feeling. Yeah. And it's such a terrible feeling, that part before it, where, like what you described, the grind, where you're like, that happens to me all the time with the vocals and on songs where I feel like I'm just beating my head against a wall, like repeatedly for a long time before like there's a breakthrough.
Yeah.
The breakthrough is always worth it, but that's it's a terrible feeling, that work.
Well, it sucks because you just know it's there and you're trying to force it and you just want it to come out and then you get frustrated. You're like, why isn't it showing up?
Yeah. And those things tend to happen more when you're like relaxed and aren't trying, but it's so hard to remember that in the moment.
Yeah, yeah. It's like you try to tell yourself. It's like when someone's frustrated about something, your friend gives you advice. You're like, don't worry, it's gonna work out. You're like, look, it's safe for you on that side of the fence right now, but I'm in it, so
Yeah.
keep your advice. So how soon after? So slower kind of sets it off. You meeting Christie Front Drive shows you like, okay, now we have a place we can play. Like when that starts all coming together, what came first? Writing? Because I know you guys put out. Actually, I even own this. I have it right here, in my record collection. The February MD.
That one was written and released in between the two full lengths.
Oh, okay. So and in Gloria, that's a single.
Yeah, the Gloria parking lot 7 inch is the first thing we released. That's what Carrie, the bass player from Christopher Drive, put out for us. At the time, we recorded 4 songs. Those two, 5, 8, and 10, and Satyr Star. We, used our two favorites, the two hits in our mind, Gloria and Parking Lot for the 7-inch, and we had gotten asked to contribute a song to a compilation out of Chicago called Ground Rule Double. So we gave them 5, 8, and 10. Yeah, Saturday Star didn't see the light of day till later. Soon, pretty quickly after that, went back into the studio with the same producer, this lady, Judy Kirshner, because we really loved how those first 4 songs we did with her turned out, and recorded the full-length Power Failing with her. But we were already so married to the versions of Gloria and Parking Lot that we had released that we ended up using those from the initial session on the record. So the other 8 songs were recorded with her maybe 5 months later or 6 months later or something.
Did you guys have a record deal with Crank at that point, or did you just record the record on your own dime?
We had the deal. We had met Crank. Jeff heard the 7-inch and was super gung-ho about making a record. Yeah, we had it all in place.
How long were you guys playing before you recorded Power Failing?
So we recorded Power Failing in October of 95, and we probably started playing together early 94, late 93, something like that.
Were you getting a following in Texas this time?
Not a big one. That's part of why touring was so exciting for us and finding this scene. It's because we didn't really feel like we had that at home. There was great venues, and we played them as often as possible. As far as seeing other bands that felt similar to us, we didn't feel like there was a lot of that.
So when you guys went on your first tour, do you remember who it was with and where you guys went?
Yeah, it was with Christie Front Drive. Yeah, they asked us. I mean, that night in Houston when we met them and all fell in love with each other, they were like, Carrie's like, I want to put out a record for you. I'm thinking about starting a little label. I want to put out a 7-inch. And when they got back from their tour, a couple weeks later, he called up and he was talking about that. And he was like, you guys won't go on tour? Because I'm starting to book a tour for us for the fall. And you should come, So we were just I don't know. It was just it all happened very quickly.
So when you guys went out, how long did you go out for?
I think it was probably just a couple weeks. We were meeting up with them in St. Louis and did a week of shows in the Midwest with them. I remember specifically we kind of on our own booked some shows on the way up to St. Louis. It's just funny how terrible they were. Playing random bars where nobody cared about the style of music we were playing. For regulars who were what the hell is going on here? Or to nobody. Got to St. Louis, and it was just so exciting to oh, there are people who come out and check out this kind of music, and it was fun.
Yeah, that's the worst. You just show up because the whole time, I mean, the whole time on tour in the beginning, it's awesome because you're excited because you're leaving your town, you're seeing the country, you're just driving, and it's exciting. Then you show up sometime. In the very beginning, you're like, okay, we're in a basement, there's 2 people, but we're not home, so this is cool. But after a while, you're like, all right, this sucks.
I mean, I feel like we were pretty fortunate to kind of immediately find some people who were into what we were doing, but yeah, those shows are always a little painful.
Yeah, because your sound at the time was newer. I mean, you guys, I don't really know a lot of. I mean, I'm sure there were, but I mean, you guys, Jimmy Eat World, Knapsack, Sensefield, those are the bands that opened my eyes up to this slower sound, this more emo sound, quote unquote.
Yeah, on that first tour we did with Christie Front Drive, we crossed paths with Knapsack, and the 3 of us had a show together in Columbia, Missouri. And so, yeah, discovering them, it's just we discovered all of it at once.
Did you guys have a feeling that you were onto something, with your sound, that was just because it was just different and the bands you're connecting with, or they became big names in the scene? Did you guys kind of see that as it was happening?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think we knew that we were onto something that we liked, and it was exciting to find other bands that were maybe of similar ilk, but I didn't necessarily see any of it getting huge. Well, I mean, that's not true. I think, we were very much typical, young rock band at the time, in that, we wanted world domination, we wanted to, the goal was always to yeah, you get on a major label at some point, you just keep getting bigger and bigger, and I think getting into this scene, was cool for me because it made me realize, and it made me sort of respect doing things with integrity and not just trying to get bigger. But I think there was always that part of us too, like we wanted to take on the world. And we grew up too, like listening to, we were really into like early U2, stuff like that, that felt like where it's a small band and they're young, but they have a sound that sounds like it belongs in like a stadium. And there's something about the sound of us and a lot of these bands at the time that's like, we need really big rooms for this sound. So it's sort of ironic that we're playing like little DIY shows in basements and coffee shops and VFW halls.
Yeah, the coffee shops and the small bars that I can't imagine. I mean, that's probably why you got the looks because it just doesn't match the sound. It's too small of a
Yeah,
space. It's too intimate. Even though you guys have like intimate songs, like you guys can shred and then slow it down and have some of your songs come out and just like it levels it off and then it kicks back in again.
yeah.
What was like the vision of the four of you? Were you guys all on the same page when you were going on the road? And because you were talking about, yeah, like, yeah, we want to be big. We want to, be YouTube status. We want to be in bigger places and playing. Were all you guys on the same page?
I think, yeah, I think we were really. I mean, I think if anyone, I think I sort of started to wonder, like, I started to wonder if we could get bigger and keep the sort of intimacy of what we were doing. So I think I was, like when we signed with Interscope and were courted by a bunch of major labels, I think I was probably the hardest one to convince. And I even, made statements at the time that like it's not something I would do if it was my decision alone. But I'm not going to break up the band by saying like we can't sign to a major label.
So before we get to there, like, how, speaking of labels, Crank at the time, because Crank, it's like every label back then had some kind of tier, and I always say this, like Fat Records and Epitaph were kind of like the big ones at the time, and then you go bigger, and you have like Capitol Records and everything else, like Interscope's huge. Then you go like kind of different, like Crank was a known name, and they were independent enough, but like you'd hear the name, and be like, oh shit, your guys are on Crank Records. Did that help you guys out being on that record label?
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, like I mean, we were pretty early on in the history of that label, but like the work that had already been done was crucial. And Jeff just had experience, like he'd come from major labels and kind of kind of knew how to release and market music. And he, I think, was very excited about the scene and very good at what he was doing at the time. It felt like if you were like a soccer player or something, in the first team you got offered a role on was already a good team,
Yeah, yeah.
It was already competing at a high level. Like it felt kind of like that. So it felt good for sure.
Was it helpful? But did he just because you mentioned before these tours that you guys went on, was that just basically through Crank? Did he just hook it up and say, all right, you guys are gonna go on this band this time and this band this time, or are you guys doing some legwork yourselves?
No, that was all us. I mean, but I think what it was is, I mean, it was collective. Like Jeff, once we hooked up with Crank, was definitely involved in, every aspect of helping the band get out there and get more and more shows and better shows. A lot of it was just like grew out of that, initial connection with Christie Front Drive and this scene where like, there was almost like a phone book that you got handed that was like, all right, if you need a show in such and such city or such and such state, you call this person. It was mapped out for you.
How'd you guys? So talk about this split with Jimmy World and Sensefield. How did that all come together?
Well, we all three of us just at the same time basically got taken on by a big booking, not a big booking agent, but a booking agent at a big booking agency. The agency group at the time was huge. They had a lot of big people, but this guy who was a new guy who was just starting there and like bringing his own bands, trying to build his own roster of bands at the company, and was very interested in a lot of these bands. All at once, like Jimmy Eat World, Sensefield, and us like started getting booked by this guy who actually had connections. That was exciting. We didn't have to book our own tours and come home to enormous delinquent phone bills. And because he had all three of us and we were all kind of in the same arena of sound or scene or whatever, like he was immediately just like, let's just put a tour together with all three of you.
So was that the one that you guys played, the Mind Over Matter Fest in Michigan?
Hmm.
Have you seen the video? It's on
Yeah,
YouTube. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. That was a really fun tour. Like that was the first time we ever played like sold out shows, and the shows just like it kept selling out. We would usually find out about it the day of or something, like, yeah, tonight's show is sold out, which is an awesome feeling. And playing a lot of places, particularly on the East Coast that we hadn't played before, it was just real fun, and everyone got along great and had a great time. And there weren't any like egos. I think, Sensefield was certainly the bigger of the three bands at the time, and I think it was initially sort of booked as a like Sensefield. Sorry about that. That's my 4-year-old wondering why the door is locked.
It's okay.
Hey, Daddy's on a call. Be out in a minute, okay, buddy? It was like kind of set up as like Sensefield's headlining. I think it was probably Jimmy Eat World in the middle and us first. But as we started doing the tour, sort of a age-old idea that like nobody wants to play last because everyone, the crowd's energy is gone by then. Lots of times people like leave, even at sold out shows. The crowd is smaller by the time the last band plays. So we just worked out between the three of us a rotating system, not like a scheduled rotating system, but we were just like trying to decide what makes the most sense. Like, well, in this city, like Sensefield definitely probably has more fans than us, so they're gonna play last. But yeah, we just kind of worked it out. It was a really fun tour. It was a really good time, and it was fun to feel like it really felt like we're getting to another level here, like
Yeah.
we're playing real clubs with like, what are these things? What are these boxes on the floor in front of us? Are these monitors? Well, those are cool. We can hear ourselves sing. That's cool.
Did you find that you picked up some things from watching them play live where you'd see that, I don't know, like some bands kind of just feed off of each other. Was there anything you picked up from those bands?
Yeah, definitely. It was kind of a mutual admiration society. Like I wasn't as familiar with Sensefield as I was with Jimmy Eat World, but I love Jimmy Eat World, and we had even prior to that we had done shows with Jimmy Eat World, so we were closer with them. But it was a good time every night, like watching the other bands, and it was exciting. I know we geeked out about a lot of things in Jimmy Eat World. Like I know Gabe got really close with Zach and was very fond of Zach's drumming. So yeah, it's a sort of situation where everyone makes everyone else better. It's not a competition in the sense of like we're the best or we're the biggest, but it's like, yeah, you push each other to be better every night. You're like, oh man, Jimmy Eat World just slayed out there, and now we have to go up there, so we're gonna have to raise our game.
Yeah. Does it blow your mind of how gigantic they are right now?
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really because I know they haven't ever stopped.
Well, not saying like they didn't deserve it, but just seeing that happen when you were saying before how you guys wanted to get to this stratosphere, and technically you were right. Like, because I think a lot of bands back then thought of the whole stadium thing, and they were like, yeah, we could do that. And sometimes it just really wasn't the cards for them. But then Jimmy Eat World, you see them, and they were huge locally. They were just gigantic locally. And then when they broke in the mainstream, we were like, yeah, we got it. And now it's just crazy seeing them as as big as they are.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's been great to see. I really enjoyed seeing it with the Promise Ring too. Like as time went on with them, like they didn't stick to it as long, but like yeah, it's always cool to see like being in Austin and like just remembering all the times after Mineral ended and we were doing the Gloria and stuff, like all the times Jimmy Eat World came through, like we would always go see him and hang out, or the Get Up Kids. It was just cool to see how much bigger the crowds were each time and the venues.
When you guys did the split with Jimmy Eat World and Sensefield, did you guys like hear each other's songs before they got it was two parts. It was there like did you get to hear their songs before the compilation came out? And the other part is when you were when you were recording your song to be on that split or it was recorded, were you kind of like, oh man, like we've got to kind of one up them? Like I hope it was there like a small little tiny competition at all?
Not at all. It was very much a afterthought, really, and like almost like oh, this tour is happening, and Jeff from Crank was like, we should do like a three-way split 7-inch, and we didn't have a song for it, so we ended up using our song on there as a cover of "Crazy" by Willie Nelson,
Oh,
which we had recorded for something else, like some compilation of some sort, but then it never ended up getting used. So we offered that because that's all we had, in the moment. So yeah, I didn't hear what Jimmy Eat World songs or Sensefield songs were going to be on it until the product was in hand. I just knew that Jeff was like excited about commemorating the tour with a three-way split 7-inch that we could be selling on the tour, and like splitting the money 3 ways to kind of help with the tour. Yeah, it was very much not a like planned out ahead of time thing, and like, well, we're going to do this song and they're going to do that song, so our song has to be great.
If you could go back and could replace it with a song, would you do it?
I love that. I mean, I don't think it's appropriate for the 3-way split 7-inch probably, but I love our version of Crazy. To me, like Mineral is so like there's some things about Mineral that are so like can't be polished. We recorded that on a 4-track in our rehearsal space.
Oh wow.
I think I loved the rawness of it. Again, I think Scott's feedback on that song is like, some people would probably say distracting, but I think it's just an art form, and I loved it. So yeah, I love our contribution to it. I don't know if it's from a fan's point of view, like a fan would probably want a different song on there of ours, but
Yeah, it wasn't coming from a question of like, oh, bummer. It was more of because it's such a even to this day, it's such a known split. I mean, there's I mean, I can't even just off the top of my head think of a handful of splits from back then that were so, especially, I mean, for someone like myself that I remember going like, oh my God. I mean, like the Jimmy Eat World split with Jejune, I still own that one, and that was a huge landmark or what milestone or whatever the fuck the word is for that for like me, because I still have that. And like, what would I say to you now? I just did an interview with Rama from Big Wheel, and we were talking about it. I was like, that's one of the best Jimmy Eat World songs. I was like, I think that is the best Jimmy Eat World song. So there's some records out there that still exist that are these splits. So it was kind of like for you to think like, yeah, it's still known, but it's cool that you still are like, yeah, no, I stand behind my decision of what we put on it.
yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like I said, it didn't feel like a huge decision just because it was literally all we had to offer at the time.
Yeah.
The only song we had that we could just give him to go with right away.
So I'm jumping forward a little bit here, but just because we're talking about covers, covers are cool, and I typically like the original, but "Love My Way" is one of the greatest covers I've ever heard. Like I've had that in my Spotify playlist. I've added it, taken out like for years. It's amazing.
Yeah, I love how that turned out. What's cool about the covers is they were both Scott's selections, and Scott's kind of had the direction for them in mind. And I love working in that situation and I also love the working with a song that is good that I don't have to write,
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, oh, the vocals and melody are already there for me. The lyrics, great. That just means I just get to have fun. Like I don't have to work. But I remember specifically, like Scott had me. This sounds weird to say, but had me. This often happened with Scott, like on songs or music that he would write. He would come in and show me a chord progression to play, and then he would show Jeremy a bass line to play, and then he would show us his part. Like he had 3 parts worked out, and then Jeremy and I would always adapt our parts to make them our own. Whereas when I would come in with songs, I just had my part, and everyone was just like, I don't know, do whatever you want. But I remember he had me playing some like just kind of like basic rhythm chords, and nothing was really doing that keyboard line that and I was like, I want to do that, so I just like I remember specifically in the studio like finding that line on the guitar, and I'm like, I think I should just play that the whole time.
Oh, hell yeah. That's like one of the best parts. It's so simple and subtle, but it just cuts through everything.
Yeah, yeah.
And then like the scream at the end where you just like roar that last it's so you just belt out that last line is like amazing. It's so good.
That was really fun to record. Yeah, that was good.
How long did it take you to nail that part?
I definitely had to have him send it back to me for probably a half hour. I was like, do it again, do it again, do it again. And it would just keep sending me that part, and I would just like, and then I finally hit it like the way I wanted to.
Because there's like a tiny crack, like a small crack. It seems like you're gonna fall off, and then you just hold it,
Yeah.
which is awesome. Oh my God, that's amazing. So like around this time, you guys are actually this is a really stupid question, but I remembered it being the liner notes or in the back of the CD for Power Failing. You had something line that said just 4 pizza delivery guys on tour or something like that.
Pizza Boys Gone Rock.
Pizza Boys Gone Rock. What?
Yeah.
Stupid question. What pizza? What jobs did you guys have?
So we all worked for a time when we were making that record at a pizza place in Austin called Gumby's Pizza as delivery drivers, and I cooked some too, and it was my idea. I thought it was awesome. Everyone else hated it and was really kind of like, why did you put that in there? So I had to stand behind it for years.
So I don't know if this help, and it doesn't really matter if it helps out, but like what it meant to me is at that time I was in a band and we were going to go on tour and we went on tour. But when I saw that line, I remember me and my friends, 'cause my friend Chris, he introduced me to you guys. And then, because that was the time he got introduced to G Meet World and he got in the whole email thing. And then he was like, you got to hear this band Mineral. I was like, that sounds like a weird name. I don't know why I don't listen to this. And then I absolutely loved it. And I was looking at the CD artwork and I saw that part and it kind of gave me hope when I saw that. I was like, if these guys are doing like the jobs that like I'm doing and they're on tour, like I could do that.
Yeah, I like that about it too. Like, yeah, and it just felt funny to me, and like,
It's great.
and I think it's funny. Like, there's such a seriousness to the tone of our music and my lyrics, and I think people are always surprised when they meet me. Sometimes, if they know me through the music first, that I'm as silly and lighthearted as I am. So I always like opportunities to let that come through.
Yeah, I mean, because you guys have it's such a serious tone, and I think typically a band when they have that, they're like goofballs outside of it.
Yeah, totally.
So like, what was your dynamic like inside the van when you guys were touring?
It was like it was definitely a goofball. Like Scott's not a big goofball. He's just a quiet dude. I always say he runs in a pack of one. Gabe is just, a dork. Jeremy is he's probably the coolest guy in the group.
Why is that? Why is he the coolest?
I don't know, just cool in the sense of like he's always kind of like even keeled and but he's also hilarious. Like so, I don't know. It was we loved each other. Like it was a definite like brotherly camaraderie. As time went on, there were definitely differences and things that kind of drove us crazy about each other. But it was always in like a familial sense, where it's like, yeah, but he's my brother, sort of thing. Like can't can't change him.
So like leading up to End Serenading, because you guys were broken up when you made that record, right?
Well, we started it, we were still together, and we finished it, we were broken up. So we recorded all the music in one setting. I didn't have any of the vocals written yet. So this is where, once we started going in Mineral, like my writing style was very different in that, like, I wasn't starting with words. I was doing words last, like, because we would write this music together, the four of us, and like kind of get it arranged in a way that we thought was cool. And then at the end, I would have to come back and like write lyrics and vocals for it. I just didn't have anything. I was really stumped. Like, I think that tension was a lot of what sort of preceded the band ending. Like, I think there was a lot of impatience, and I just knew like I had to get it right. I had to find the stuff that was right for it for me.
Well, it's all backwards though. Like your whole process in the beginning of the interview said you would write the lyrics and then the music after. So that must have been frustrating as hell.
It was, and I think that too is a lot of what sort of led to the tensions that ended the band. Like it was just not a comfortable way for me to work. It's not to say I don't think I got great stuff out of it, but honestly, I was confident with Power Failing when we put it out. I was like, this is a great record, and like, I think we did a good job, and excited to like get out there and play it and promote it. I had the opposite feeling with Serenading. Like I still didn't feel like the lyrics or vocals were good. It just didn't ever feel right to me or feel good. And I love now like how much I love it and how great it is because I love the idea that you can like do good work without that confidence in the moment that you're doing good work, you know?
What made it so slow?
I think just I don't know what it was. Like I think I was I don't know.
Because there's like in Power Failing, there's so many ripper parts in it, and it's like you guys just had it. I mean, granted, your first record as a band, it's just everything. It was like a life. It's like a lifetime to make your first record, a year to make your second.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like you guys had this. I mean, it's so raw. Power Failing is so raw, but it's threaded together so well. But there's just this rawness to it, like the guitar, your vocals, the lyrics, like the structure of the songs, even like Parking Lot, how you end it is just such a like a banger. And EndSerenading was so polished and it's just so chill. I mean, even the first song, it starts off, and my buddy Bob, he had a radio station, a radio show, and he played it, and he's like, man, it's a balls move for these guys to start off so slow. I felt as a fan, I don't say like that, like I'm disappointed, thing, but like it was like there was this built up when you're waiting because you were so used to Mineral songs doing this build up and then would break through, and that like didn't happen with that record.
Yeah. I mean, there was definitely a conscious decision on our parts to not rely as heavily on these like really wide dynamics. And that was part of it. I think I was just like, I think I wrote more of the music than on Power Failing, probably. And I was, as has been discussed earlier, I was really into like slow, pretty stuff. Like the stuff I was interested in and listening to at the time was like Low and Red House Painters, and we all loved this band Bedhead from Texas. That's very much like that. We were into coding, so we were getting into a lot of this really slow, like stuff, like stuff that years later I would hear described as like slowcore. So we were really really into that. And like I said, we were like collectively, especially Scott was like determined not to like, for whatever reason, I'm not sure why, but like not to rely as heavily on these large jumps and dynamics.
Did you also find that you were kind of maybe shredding your voice, like going too high in some songs? You want to take it back a bit?
Sure, yeah, studio is always a very humbling time for a singer when you realize that the stuff you can get away with live because it's like buried in a wall of sound is it doesn't actually sound that good when you put a really good mic on. Like, and you're actually not hitting those notes. There was some of that for sure, but like I said, I was just really interested in softer, quieter, more chill things.
So, "And Serenading," the song, like, what is that about? Like that definitely is like the hit from to me
Yeah.
from that record. It's so it's just so good. Like you guys have this weird like rounded off sound with like your guitar tone or the bass. Just there's something about it. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but that song just I mean it stands out so well. So like what is that song about?
So that song, after we got home from the studio and tour, and I didn't have any vocals or lyrics or everything. I I just kind of went on a road trip in my car and just kind of left. All I brought with me was a cassette of the instrumental mixes of the tracks we had done, and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna go, and I'm not coming home till I have lyrics and vocals for this thing. And of course, I cheated along the way and got real sick of it and stopped at Walmart and bought some cassettes of other music. And I didn't actually write that much, but I did come up with Sounds Like Sunday and Serenading on that trip. And I actually remember and Serenading, I was like heading back towards Texas, and I didn't go too far. Like I went over to New Orleans, like Jazz Fest was going on, and it's a fun time to be in New Orleans. And then I went up to like Jackson, Mississippi, and Memphis, Tennessee, and I was quickly realizing like I don't have the stamina or the will to wander long enough to write this whole record, and I kind of want to go home and sleep in my bed. Um, so I had turned back towards Texas and was heading from Memphis home. Somewhere on that drive, I got and serenading, and it was fun because it just kept coming. I was really worried I didn't have any way to like record with me. So I was just like, I gotta get home so I can record this thing. Just listen to that song on repeat for like 9 hours driving back to Texas or something. These ideas kind of unfolded, but it was, by then we knew the band was done. I was excited about the opportunity to do some like layered vocal things that I knew I wouldn't have to reproduce live.
Mm, yeah.
So I think that that freed me up to do some of the stuff that happened on that, and sounds like Sunday.
Was it kind of like, uh, I don't know, did you lose a little bit of like gas knowing that you were recording this and you guys were done?
For sure, yeah. There was a sense of like fulfilling an obligation. Like Crank had already paid for, the bulk of the expense of making a record, and we didn't want to leave them out on that. And we really liked the music and really wanted to put it out. So it was just down to me like coming up with vocals and lyrics for it. But yeah, there's definitely a sense of finality to it, and it being an ending that I think affected what I did on it for sure.
So I bought the book that you guys have, the One Day when we were young, and I didn't get a chance to read the whole thing yet because but I've listened to the songs on and they're great. You had mentioned before Interscope, and then I was skimming through it because I was like, I want to find some stuff to talk about, but I don't want to. I typically like I know it's kind of backwards, and usually in interviews you want to do a lot of research because you don't want to ask the same questions. But I also am learning this stuff on the fly, so I find it more to me it's more intriguing to not know the things that you've said before because it's new to me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But the Interscope thing stood out to me because I saw it in the book. What I didn't know anything about this. Like, what is that whole story?
So yeah, shortly after Power Failing came out, we started getting a lot of calls and interest from major label, or Jeff at Crank did rather, about the band. We quickly realized like, oh, we could. This is it. We could sign to a major label. Like the interest is there. We had several labels like coming to Austin and taking us out to dinner and seeing a show or something. Then Interscope flew us out to LA, put us up in a fancy hotel, and like we had like a day of meetings and meals and things. We met with Arista Records. There's a great story in that book about us having a meeting with Clive Davis. I don't know if you know who he is, but
Yeah.
he, who was probably already like well into his 70s at the time, and suited up, as were the cronies around him. And we met him in his bungalow at the Beverly Hills Motel. And there was like a spread of food there, and he proceeded to put on Slower, and through some enormous sound system he had in this room, and just it was just cranked. It was so loud the walls were shaking, and he sat there in his suit, this old man, like bobbing back and forth to it. And he made us sit there and listen to that before he started talking to us. It was so good. Um,
That's amazing.
and his pitch was brilliant too. Like if I were to go back now, I would be like, I'm going with this guy. His pitch was only that like he handed us after the song ended, he's like, oh, great stuff. And then he handed us a list, like they had printed out of just had a list of artist names in alphabetical order. He gave us each one, and we were sitting there looking at it. He's like, go ahead and look through this list for me and let me know what you see there. And we're like, I don't know, is it a bunch of band names or something, artist names? He's like, yeah, it is. And do you recognize many of them? And I'm like, no, maybe a couple. He's like, that's the list of artists currently signed to Interscope Records, because he knew Interscope was like the main competition.
Ah.
And he's like, I just want you to notice how many artists they have and how many of them you've heard of. And then he handed us another piece of paper that had the list of Arista artists on it. And while there wasn't anything that made us think like this is the label we belong on stylistically, it's true that most of the names were big names that everybody knew. you know, it was brilliant.
Dude, that's a flex move.
Yeah, it was so flex. Yeah,
That's like when you first started saying that, I thought he was giving you a list of all of his bands, and you were just like, who the fuck are these bands? And it was just like working against them. But then you're like, oh, that's the competition of mine. It's like,
yeah,
wow.
that's Interscope's fans. Yeah, it was good stuff.
Do you think if you guys got on one of those labels, like, what do you think? Do you think that would have changed the dynamic internally where, you mean, you guys broke up? Was that just kind of on the horizon, or do you think if you got signed to one of those labels, that actually would have given you some more life?
I don't know. Well, we did end up signing to Interscope.
Oh, oh wow. That's probably one thing I should have known.
Yeah, so we went with Interscope just because they were the first people to express interest, and they just felt relatable, and like There's crazy stories in the book too about our meetings with Interscope, where Dr. Dre was in the next conference room over, finalizing the deal for Aftermath Records, like after some label merger or something had gone down. Just being surrounded by all this, and then we were in Jimmy Iovine's office, the president, and he was showing us, John Lennon's Mellotron, which he had gifted him in his office, the one they recorded Strawberry Fields on. And so we were playing with that. He was telling us, he basically said, like, I think you guys will be fine, whatever you decide to do, like as long as you keep being the ones who are driving the bus. And I just loved that, like, pitch. I was like, yeah, he wants us to keep doing what we want to do.
When I saw that line in the book that it said Interscope, I had never heard of this ever. Was this the first time in the book? Was that the first time that's been known, or is this like all like plastered all over the internet, and I'm an idiot for not knowing this?
It's out there for sure. I don't know if it's plastered. Yeah, like we signed with them in between the two records, and they wanted to take over Power Failing, like right then. They wanted to like re-release Power Failing, give it a big push. We were, maybe foolish, but we were, friends. We honored this friendship we had made with Jeff. And we were like, we don't want to give this record away, like Jeff's been the one who's helped us do everything we've done so far. And we also, we had signed a 3-record contract with Crank, and we didn't want to leave him high and dry. And we also didn't want to like go from where we were to like huge overnight, like there was something in us that really felt like it needed to be a slow sort of organic build in order to last, which ironically it didn't anyways. We worked out a deal to where we'll put out the second record with Crank, and the third record option in the Crank contract will be bought by Interscope. And because of that, we didn't get a huge advance, but we did get, well, it was a huge advance for us. It wasn't as big as it would have been if we had just signed everything over to them right away. But they gave us an advance, half of an advance, the second half of which would be given to us when we delivered that third album to them. And they also gave Jeff like I don't remember the numbers, but a marketing budget to help with EndSerenading in order to sort of help things keep moving the right direction. So yeah, it was a big deal. And like I said earlier, like I in the moment, like even told the guys, like, if it was up to me, I wouldn't do this. I would just keep doing what we're doing and let it sort of build and grow organically without this. It was, I understand, it was something that was very exciting for us, and understood everyone else wanting to make that move.
I mean, it's interesting because you guys broke up, and then was it 2014 you got back together for the reunion shows, and you've been kind of just doing one-offs here and there since then. Like you guys are playing, what's the festival you guys are playing in Alabama that's coming up? If there's no like more of an outbreak.
Right, Furnace Fest.
Furnace Fest. Yeah, I saw that and I was like, shit. I was like, damn it, where are they playing? And it's like Alabama. I was like, God damn it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How do you guys like? Because I saw you guys play. Actually, I have a photo with you and my buddy John Price. It was after the show. I think it's like right by your merch table, and I posted it on my podcast in Instagram, and I just like reshared it again. But I was hammered at the time, but I was you guys kicked ass. We saw you guys at Bowery, and that was the only time I'd ever seen you guys.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, like I loved it because right around that time was all these bands started to do reunion shows, and typically it could go either way, but I felt every band that I went to see it was exactly what I wanted to see. Like,
oh, that's great.
Yeah, man, you guys killed it. Like I saw Sunny Day Real Estate when they got together. I saw The Refused. The hell else? I just saw so many bands play, but that was, and actually, this is just whatever, but I had just gotten separated that year, so it was like this whole year of just crap, and then I saw you guys. I was like, this is like the win that I needed right now was seeing you guys. Awesome. Yeah, but so like. And I'm going to wrap this up soon. So like when you guys got back together and started playing, it almost seems like, I mean, this is all just a guess, but you guys, let's say you put the third record out, eventually it would have stopped. It would have been cool if we had like a third full mineral record, even though we've got like 2 new songs now, which are awesome. I don't know, like, what are your thoughts of the fact that you guys stopped and you guys were able to get back together in 2014, and now you get to show up at just these festivals and they, say, hey, we want to pay you this. You're like, cool, and like you fly there and stuff. It seems like that's a lot of it. It's a bit of more of an easier, granted you got to travel and stuff, but it seems like more of better way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like the only way we can do it with like families and real jobs and stuff. Like the real jobs are not, I don't have one of those, but people do, you know. I do have 4 kids, so I'm taken care of in the family department. Yeah, it's fun to be able to do this. And we really worked hard like in 2014, 2015, like the initial reunion, we ended up touring the whole world, you know, like we went to Japan and Australia and Europe. We actually did Europe, Japan, and Australia all in 1 month, like with no break. Like just like flew to Europe, toured for 2 weeks, had a day off, flew to Japan, toured for a week, had a day off, flew to Australia, and toured for 4 or 5 days. And that was exhausting. And it was really fun to get to do it. And it was kind of the only way we could do it at the time. But it was like I don't think we there's my guy again. I don't I don't think we ever want to do that again, you know. So it feels really good to be at the point now where we can just say like we're just, you know, we're open to one-offs, and also, you know, like you said, there isn't a third record. There's 2 songs that we came up with to for this 25th anniversary book. Like there's really no need to be like touring like that without a new record to promote or something or to market. Yeah, it feels good. It feels like nice to be able to do that. And in 2019, when we toured again, we went back to Japan and back to Europe, did the States again, and we got to go to South America, which was amazing.
I saw the crowd surfing video in Japan. That must have been wild to see that.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Cool, man. Well, I could talk to you forever, but I want to be just, it sounds like your kids are ready to break the door down. You have all boys or?
1 girl and 3 boys.
Oh, wow. She the youngest or?
No, we have 10-year-old boy-girl twins who are our first,
Oh, wow.
and then an 8-year-old boy, and then a 4-year-old boy.
Cool, man. Well, so I'm gonna wrap this up and ask 2 more questions. One, I know you talked about in the beginning, but what would you like to plug? It could be, again, more things that you're doing, or you can throw some love at something someone else is doing, or you could do both.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Check out Mountain Time if you're interested.
Cool. And where can they find your the mineral book and the with the record in it?
Mineral Book is out there. I don't know, to be honest, where you can find it. Search it up on the internet. It's out there somewhere.
Actually, I think I bought it on Bandcamp. If you go to mineralofficial.bandcamp.com.
There you go. Yeah, you can definitely buy it there. Or there's a mineral merch store, which is probably a link to at the Bandcamp. Yeah.
Cool. All right, man. I'm not. I wonder if this one's gonna work. So I ask this at the end of every interview. What scene ethics do you hold on to this day?
Uh, I think there's just something about the like kind of honesty and integrity that I felt in the scene that really resonated with me and that feels important to me, you know. And that's really just about like being yourself, you know, regardless of whether that's the easiest thing to be at any given time, and treating other people with respect.